Pucking Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends, the Bamboozle Project, as well as DraftKings. We thank them all for their sponsorship. Go check out the bamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB at checkout. There is not only a wide array of options for you on the Bamboozle Project website, there are some new options. There's some snapback hats I saw. There are the winter hats, which as of a week ago sold out, and they sold out with 2 color schemes. I went on the site last week, and maybe I'm just behind the times. That wouldn't be the first time or the last time that has happened. But there are now like 7 different color combinations you could get. So you could match whatever outfit you want. They are super affordable. And again, when you use that MYPB promo code, it only is going to get cheaper for you to use it. So go check out the Bamboozle Project. And we thank DraftKings as well for their sponsorship. This is, what were you going to say?
The snapbacks are going to go fast. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we are noticing that a bunch of the stuff has been selling out. Yeah. I saw there's some more stuff today. We actually just put it up on our Instagram story. What I would say is if you are going to order stuff, timing is always of the essence. Absolutely. Can't guarantee you what you see today will be there tomorrow.
True.
This is episode 161, Ciento Sesenta y Uno on the Spanish dial. We appreciate you tuning in if you're using the Spanish features to listen to today's or this week's episode. And you can listen to said episode on Spotify or iTunes. You can stream it there, or you can watch it live on YouTube or Instagram Live. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can certainly email us, although I will tell you that is not the most popular way to do so. But if you like email and you're not a social media person, you can do so at mypbshow@gmail.com, or the easier way, and we are always interacting with people there, is through Instagram and DMing us at Mind Your Pucking Business. I will put up a complaint I saw on the comments already. If you want to put it up about our merchandise, there is still no flannel. There is no MYPB flannel.
We can't leak any information, but that might be changing.
Right. You know what? We'll leave it at that. If you stay tuned in the coming weeks, maybe month or so,
maybe we'll have some new information.
Maybe you'll have your Christmas gift, Chris, or in Chris's case, his Hanukkah gift. Right? I'll have that. All right, so we are in. So today, coming up shortly, you're in for a treat. Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com, will be with us talking a million things going on with, well, not a million things going on with the Rangers, I shouldn't say, but the stuff that is going on with the Rangers that are topics, we're going to run through them all. We'll obviously go through Trouba. We'll go through, other signings. Is Kakko gonna be on the team and all that stuff. So, but before we do so, we are literally now, I was thinking this driving into the studio before, we are in the dog days of summer with hockey, because you get the beauty of hockey and the beauty for Ranger fans, I guess, in particular, because the Rangers technically played into June, at least one day of it when their season ended, is you get hockey to the last week. Game 7 for the Florida series was June 24th. So June 24th, you had your ending point of hockey. So you had it for a while. 3 days later, June 27th was the draft. And then 4 days later on July 1st was free agency. And then again, guys with the flannel comments though in the chat, I see. And then a day later came the schedule. So it was like you were almost, the NHL said, all right, the season's over, but we're now going to just instantly give you more, right? With all that stuff, the draft and free agency. And now as free agency, not that it's ended because it's obviously still open, but big names are gone. There's not as much talk. You now enter really what I would say is the next 6 or 7 weeks of limited hockey coverage.
Yeah.
Like there's just not a lot. There'll be trades, there'll be moves. I mean, I would expect in that time the Rangers will do stuff. But until you now get to that second week in September, third week of September, although I think this year I saw it's the second week, thankfully, where training camp opens, there's just not a tremendous amount of stuff going on the hockey front.
They need to make like a Hard Knocks for hockey.
They do. Well, they did. When the Rangers were in it in 2012, the NHL with the Winter Classic, they would follow teams, and it was awesome. And there are some great clips. Matter of fact, one of them just came up on Instagram the other day of Tortorella screaming at the team in a game in Philadelphia. Ironically, that was taped by, I think it was, I want to say it was called 24/7 or something like that, but it was the equivalent of that. But if you were taping and you were looking at that sort of stuff this time of year, there's not a lot. There's just not a lot to kind of.
But we're here.
but we're here.
To satisfy
And
your
Dan
hockey
Rosen will
needs.
be here momentarily. So nothing new on the Trouba front. You know, the longer the Trouba stuff plays out, to me, the better the odds are that he's back on the team.
We have some suggestions, by the way, before you I
Mhm.
don't want to cut you off. All or Nothing on Amazon Prime.
Yes, Rangers at that. They're right. There was they followed the Maple Leafs. Yes,
Nice.
that was good. There is actually also, and I don't know how to get it. It just came to me. They do a Hard Knocks with the Bruins. It's on a channel
their
in
own
Boston.
thing?
Yeah, it's on whatever the MSG equivalent of is it Nesson? I should know this because I lived up in Boston. It's Nesson. Yeah. So they have, I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Behind the Gold or Behind the Black and Gold or something. They have that, but it's not a national thing. But Rangers Ed is right. All or Nothing on Amazon Prime is a good watch.
Nice.
Yeah, especially again now because this is the time of year where you don't have a lot.
Yeah.
And if you like, and again, I get in trouble when I say anything with baseball on this show, but unless you like baseball, you know, you don't have football. I mean, training camp will open, I guess, in 2 weeks. You don't have football. You don't have hockey. You don't have basketball, although I am ironically wearing the Knicks shirt today. Yeah, we could use that. So the longer the Jacob Trouba stuff goes on, to me, the higher the likelihood he's going to be back here. And the first thing that I am going to look at, if he is back, and again, I told you this last week, I'm fine if he comes back. I'm also fine if he's traded. I'm kind of in the middle. But what cannot happen, and this is what the bigwigs here at Undefeated Media clipped on an Instagram clip last week, which was that if he does come back, you can't have your home fans booing your captain. I mean, it's just not going to work. So that would be something, of course, that I would take a look at going forward if that is going to be an issue. And that, if that does come to fruition, as some people have said they will do, that would be a problem. The other thing as well, and this is a question we'll ask Dan in a couple of minutes when he joins us, is, you know, Kakko, is he here going forward? I mean, that's another question that I think, and this is where, like, when we talk about the dog days of summer, you're not going to get a lot of hockey content for 7 or 8 weeks, but somewhere within the 7 to 8 weeks, for sure, is going to do something. I mean, there's stuff here at some point that has to be done. And speaking of stuff having to be done, we will try to bring in Dan Rosen right now. Let's try and bring him in if we can.
There we go.
How are you?
I'm good. You guys got me?
We got you good. This is Dan Rosen, of course, our favorite guest, senior writer, NHL.com. How's the summer going so far?
It's been good. It's been quiet since about July 2nd, July 3rd. So that's good. Really, July 2nd. What are we on? July 17th? So my summer's about 2 weeks old.
There you go. Well, I was just saying the NHL did a really cool thing with the Stanley Cup Finals ending on the 24th. You had the draft 3 days later. Then you had free agency that Monday. Then you had the schedule release. So they kind of extended it. But now it's like, here you are. You're in the dog days where there's just not going to be a lot going on. But leave it to the Rangers to give you some content and some stuff to talk about. And obviously, we have to start with Jacob Trouba. To me, you can't have, so if he stays, somehow what worries me, and I said this last week, was if you have your home fans booing your captain on a nightly basis, that's a terrible look, obviously.
Yes.
But I think that the longer this goes on, I'm starting to think the higher the odds are he is back with the Rangers. Where do you stand? What do you think is going to happen here with Jacob Trouba?
Well, I really never felt he was going to be traded, to be honest with you. Like, I thought it was too hard of a trade to make. Number one, you have him submitting a no trade list, right? So he's got a no move clause, so he's not going to agree to a trade. We know that. Now he's got to submit a no trade list, a 15 team, I believe it is, no trade list July 1st. But on that list, he's going to, if he doesn't want to move, he's going to have control. He's going to put the teams in that can afford him. They're just not going to be able to, right? You know, the teams that are up in the cap that may not, A, need him, and B, can't afford him. And I don't know what teams were on his list. But that would be my guess. That's how it would have gone. I'm not reporting that. I'm just saying that's a hunch. That's a guess, right? And so beyond that, you're talking about a guy with an 8 million. What is it? 8 million, right? Cap hit 8 million, something in that neighborhood, right? Can't exactly remember. I'm in summer mode. You know, That's hard. And even if the Rangers want to eat half of it, I mean, that's $4 million that they're going to have to eat if they go 50%, or maybe if they go 25%, it's $2 million. Well, it's a lot to eat to get rid of a guy who his good outweighs his bad. He did not have a good playoffs. We know that, right? I mean, but did he play a role in this team winning the President's Trophy? 100%. He played a role in the team winning the President's Trophy. He's the leader of that team. You walk in that locker room, as I do often, it's very clear that Jacob Trouba is the leader of that team. He is the voice of that team. Chris Kreider does his thing. Mika Zibanejad is absolutely a leader too. Adam Fox too, right? Panarin has a role. Trocheck certainly has a role. Barclay Goodrow had one, but now he's gone. But Jacob Trouba is the leader of that team. So I never really felt he was going to be traded because I didn't think a deal could be worked out that would be favorable, A, to the Rangers, and B, to the team acquiring him, and a team that Trouba would be willing to go to. So put it all together, I think he's going to be back. Yeah.
Okay. So let's couple Trouba with Goodrow, who you mentioned. Obviously, Goodrow, placed on waivers, kind of backhandedly getting a way to get rid of him. Do you think other players around the league or players in the Rangers locker room are looking at the Goodrow situation coupled with the Trouba situation and a little worried about what they're seeing, the way the Rangers front office is handling things, or maybe not as attractive to players outside of New York, or not really?
I don't know that plays a role, to be honest with you. I think for a player, he's going to, if you're an NHL player, you're betting on yourself, right? And I think that they look at it and say, that team is a Stanley Cup contender. That team might have the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. That team's got a coach who's brought multiple teams to a Stanley Cup final and won one of them. That's a team that I want to play for. Oh, and by the way, they play in New York. They play at Madison Square Garden. There's a huge fan base. There's a great following. You can get on a line with Mika Zibanejad. You can get on a line with Trocheck, or you can play on a D pair with Fox, whatever it might be, right? Like you're playing with Shesterkin. To me, and the travel is great. The living, you don't have to go far for a lot of your road games. There's a lot of things that are good about it. So I don't necessarily know that players look at it and say, I don't like the way they treated that guy, I'm not going to go play there. I don't think that's a concern. I don't think that comes into play because at the end of the day, the players also know this is a business. And to be honest with you, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at Barclay Goodrow and the impact that he made at $3.6 million versus Sam Carrick and the impact he can make at $1 million. And it's a similar impact, if you ask me.
Okay. I would completely agree with that. And to me, the Goodrow thing, I had no problem with it. Maybe you don't, if you have a personal attachment to Barclay Goodrow, maybe you don't like the way it went down, but I certainly, from a business point of view and building a roster, certainly made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of the roster, for years now, we have yet to see them solve the top line right wing to play with Mika and Kreider, right? There's been a million people that have played in that slot. None of them have really worked out. Is it something, are we going into next season? I mean, I'm starting to think that this is going to be the same thing. We're going to just keep plugging people in, trying to find the spark. Or do you think Chris Drury is going to try and find a way via trades that you would think, if it's going to happen, to try and acquire someone to play that? And then lastly, or is that answer Riley Smith, do they think?
Well, I think right now the answer is Riley Smith. If you looked at the roster today and you did a depth chart, it's Riley Smith, right? I mean, it's not Kappo Kakko. I think Kakko has proven over the course of 250, 300 NHL games or more, I don't know the exact number, he's not that guy. He's just not that player. He's had opportunities. He's not that guy. He could be a really good third-line player. I think he's still going to get traded at some point. I do. And maybe he's traded for somebody who can, be that guy, but I don't think so. I think it's more of a draft pick prospect type trade, if you ask me. I think right now you look at it, it's Riley Smith. Is he the right guy? I don't know. We have no idea. We'll find out. I asked Mika Zibanejad on breakup day, what's the right player there? Who's the right? What's the type of player you think fits best? If you and Chris Kreider are going to be together, what player fits best? And he hemmed and hawed, and he gave a long answer, and he joked about me putting him on the spot. And then he said, a distributor, a guy who can pass the puck, because he's a shooter and Kreider's a go to the net guy. and then tip net front type of guy. He's not a distributor, right? Matt Zuccarello is a name that came up as pretty much the best guy that's played there. Well, he's not coming back. And that's the type of player. You look at the team, well, they have a guy. It's Panarin. Right? But he's a left wing, prefers to play on his off wing. And I don't know how you break up that line. So, to me, it's Riley Smith. Is Riley Smith the distributor? I don't know. But Riley Smith has been a good player who's played with good players. He had a tough year in Pittsburgh. It was a tough transition year for him. But I think right now you look at it and it's going to say Riley Smith unless they pull off some type of trade that brings in somebody else. And then you do it and you have Riley Smith there and you see how it works. And I think this team is still understanding that they're a top 3 team in the Metropolitan Division. And they should be and they will be, if not top 2. And then you address it at the trade deadline again.
Okay. We'll break it up, and I'll take a user question if you want to put in the Rempe question for Dan. This the second up from the bottom. Is Rempe in the opening night lineup?
100% think so. Absolutely. I think it's Jimmy Vesey on the left wing, it's Sam Carrick in the middle, and Matt Rempe on the right side. And I think that's your fourth line, unless something changes, going into training camp or whatnot. I think that's who you have there. To me, the more, if we're assuming it's Riley Smith in that spot at the right wing with Zibanejad and Kreider, and we know it's Panarin, Trocheck, and Laugh, to me, it's the more interesting question is the third line. And how that sort of breaks out. Is it Brennan Othman in that situation? How does it is assuming, let's say, we're going to assume Filipino's going to be ready to go. Hey, by the way, is Filipino the guy that moves up to right wing to play with Zibanejad and Kreider, right? So there's another option to consider. I 100% think Matt Rempe's in the lineup on opening night unless something crazy happens.
Okay. Where are we at with Filipino? If you want to plug him in the lineup opening night, great if he's healthy to do so. But how could there be any realistic expectations that he's able to go through an entire 82-game season?
I don't know that you can have that realistic expectation. I think you have to hope, right? I mean, you have to hope and you have to believe that he can. You can't expect it because of the injury, the concussion history that he has, but he came back last year. He was able to play. He had Peter Laviolette was, I 100% agreed with him on this, that there were times there when Chytil was back in the lineup in the playoffs that you knew 6 months off was a lot and it was showing. Now he's going to get ideally he gets a full off season of training, a full training camp. And if he can stay healthy, you've got yourself a real impact player who's a versatile player who can, like I said, go up to the top line right wing, can play third line center. You can move him around. He can be on your second power play unit. I don't think you can realistically expect it at this point, just based on the injury history. You have to hope that he can go through an 82-game season.
Okay. Kakko, you alluded to it before, but I'll ask it as just a question. I would think Chris Drury has no problem at this point in time trading him if the right offer is out there. Do you think opening night Kappo Kakko is on the New York Rangers?
I don't. I think eventually he gets traded. Before training camp, he'll get moved. That's just a thought. I've had that thought for a long time. I thought they were going to trade him at the deadline last year, to be honest with you. It's not working the way you want it to. And I've had this debate, if you will, argument, call it whatever, with some of the other writers, and other people who are Ranger fans. And they say, well, wow, I mean, he's the number 2 pick in the draft. Not anymore. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. But once you're the number 2 pick in the draft, that's it. That goes on your resume. And it doesn't really matter anymore. You have to go play. And Nolan Patrick was the number 2 pick in the draft. He's not in the NHL anymore, right? It's injuries, obviously. But Kakko, to me, is a guy who needs a fresh start. He needs expectations to be lowered on him. Every time he gets an opportunity to play up in the lineup, the expectations go through the roof because he's the number 2 pick in the draft, and he can't deliver on those expectations. He's a good third-line player. He could probably be a good second-line player. He's control the puck down low type of player. If he was on the team, he's not hurting the team, okay? And his contract is not hurting the team either. But at some point, you also have to say, all right, we have to make room for some few other guys. Is Kakko the right fit? Is he the right guy going to be here? Is Brennan Othman going to come in and on an entry level, cost a little bit less than Kakko, and be the guy that we want on that third line as opposed to Kakko? And I think that's, you just have to allocate the money and the assets where they can go. And if you can get something for him, you're not going to get a first round pick, I don't think. But if you can get a player who you can put in your lineup right away, or you get a second round pick or a third round, something to get back, because I don't think Kakko is going to be in New York anything more than he is right now. He kind of is what he is. That's not to say if he went to Carolina or he went to Dallas, and I named those two teams because they got a lot of Finns on the team, that he couldn't be a better player. But I don't think he's ever going to be a frontline guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a 35 goal scorer. I don't think he's ever going to be what everybody thought he could be when he was drafted.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to think, and I'm guilty of that, where I always say in my head, he's the second pick overall. He's going up to play in the top line. Here he is. He's going to break out. This is it. And it doesn't happen. And you know what? I mean, how many times do you have to see it?
It doesn't matter that he was the number 2 pick in the draft. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, he's played enough games in the National Hockey League over enough years to be, this is who you are.
Yeah. The Nolan Patrick is a great example. That's a great analogy for that. We just saw last week Jalen Brunson take less money than he could have to help out the New York Knicks. Obviously, basketball salaries and hockey salaries are not apples. Yeah, they're a little different. Yeah. So I keep that in mind when I ask you this question. But we all know that next summer, Igor needs to get paid, or before next summer. What do you think? I've heard people say that they think he'll ask for $12 million, which would be a lot for one player who's in his late 20s. Granted, he's super important. I understand that. Or do you think there is a chance that maybe he would take less to help out the team, put a better roster around him with more cap space? What, have you heard anything with Igor? Will it be this summer? Are they going to try and get it done? Anything with Igor that you know of?
I would think that it's got to be priority for them to get it done before. I think you want to get it done before camp opens. It's not a must, right? I mean, it doesn't have to happen. It can happen during the season. I haven't heard anything in regards to Igor Shesterkin saying he doesn't want to deal with it during the regular season, which sometimes you hear, right? I mean, a guy, if they don't get it done before training camp or before opening night, he says, hey, put it aside. I'm not dealing with it. I'm going to focus on my season. I haven't heard anything along those lines. We'll see when camp opens if it's not done yet. I would imagine that Igor Shesterkin wants to be the highest paid goalie in the National Hockey League. But that doesn't mean he has to make $12 million. Right. I mean, who's the highest paid goalie in the NHL right now? I think it's Vasilevsky, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think you can $10 million if you can get Igor at that price. That'd be really good. You have to remember, he's playing on a bargain deal right now. Right. I mean, for what he's delivered, I think he's making 5.5 or something like that. It's a bargain deal for what Igor Shesterkin has delivered. So you look at it and say, hey, that could double. And maybe it could. Cap going up, and that might be reasonable at that point, right? But I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to crush your cap because of the contract you have to give him. He's the most important player on the team, and he deserves to be paid as such. I don't know that Igor Shesterkin has to take the UC Saros deal, which is way less than I thought UC Saros would get. But he's going to have to take a deal. They're going to have to work together to make it work. But I think he's going to want to be the highest paid goalie in the National Hockey League, at least when he signs that contract. That'll get somebody else will make more eventually, right? But I think at the time he signs the contract, he's going to want to be the highest paid goalie in the NHL, and he deserves to be honest.
Okay, looking outside the Rangers, we'd put up on our Instagram yesterday, let people submit some questions for you. And so we've asked a bunch of them, but I was surprised at how many people wanted me to ask you a non-Ranger question. And it was all the same. And it was, how improved in your mind are the Devils? Obviously, they have a new coach. They have a new goalie, which was obviously a huge thing they needed to help with. They have a bunch of new defensemen coming up I-95 from Carolina. Right now in Vegas, they are favored to win the Metro Division with the Rangers second. How much of a believer are you in the new look Devils?
I'm a believer. I really am. I think they're good. I think they just hit injuries last year and bad goaltending. And though that combination is going to kill a team, and it did. and it absolutely destroyed the Devils. The injury to Dougie Hamilton was a killer. He was kind of like that anchor on their blue line that made everybody else slot into the right place. Too much for Nemec, too much for Hughes after that. The goaltending was so bad. And now, Jacob Markstrom, Jake Allen, hey, I'll go into the season thinking I'm a Stanley Cup contender if I have those two guys in my net. I think they're legit. They're legit 1A, 1B. Pesce is a huge sign. He brings that level of snarl on their back end. He and Brendan Dillon, huge signing. I think that they are vastly improved by who they got, and then who's coming back makes them even better. I think they are a legit team. I think the top three in the Metro remains the Rangers. The top three in the Metro are the Rangers and the Hurricanes. They stay. The Devils jump into that top three. They might be number one if they play it out the right way.
Okay. How bad? I mean, obviously Carolina is still up there, but they haven't really gotten a lot better roster-wise. They've lost a lot. Guentzel, the defenseman coming up to the Devils, but you still have them top three in the Metro?
I do, because I just don't know that the Islanders or the Capitals or the Penguins or the Blue Jays, I don't know that these other teams are ready to take over the Hurricanes. The Penguins are on the down. We know that. They're making trades for their future, okay? They take on Kevin Hayes at half price, basically. I think it's actually a quarter of the price of Kevin Hayes' contract to get a draft pick. That's what they wanted. That's the trades they're making. So they're still a contender. They still have Sidney Crosby. They still have Mike Sullivan behind their bench. So they're a contender, but are they better than Carolina at this point? I don't think so. Washington, maybe they changed it out a little bit. Can Charlie Lindgren do it again? It's a big question, right? What's Ovechkin going to be? Is it just record focused at this point? I think they're okay. The Islanders, did they get any better? They didn't get any better. Anthony Duclair's okay. I like the signing, but they didn't get any better, if you will. And so I just look at it and I say, how do these teams? The Flyers are not ready. They played above their standard, above what we thought they were going to be for 3/4 of the year last year. They're still not ready. And the Blue Jackets, I toss my hands up. I don't know what the Blue Jackets are, right? So it leaves me to think the Carolina Hurricanes have to stay in the top three.
Yep. Okay. I would agree with you. Hopefully, maybe there'll be a little bit of more of a distance now between them.
They're well with coached. The Rangers. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're really well coached. They play their system very well. They don't have the firepower, in my mind, to be as good now as the Devils and the Rangers. But they're still a good team. They're still a good team.
Were you surprised Guentzel went to Tampa?
No, not. I mean, listen, it's a great place to play. Number one, zero state tax. That helps.
Right. And not to cut you off, but that was one of the questions that someone submitted for you as well. Was how is it fair that these Florida teams can play with the no tax? It's not is there anything that can be done? But I know the answer to that is no.
Federal government. I mean, talk to the state governments. I mean, I have no idea. That's just the way it goes, right? I mean, you play by the rules where you're living, right? I mean, hey, you want to go, you can go live there and not pay it when you work too, right? Nobody's going to complain. You're not going to be complaining if it benefits you. The cap is the cap. They get to spend to the cap. That's the amount of money they get to spend. The players choose where they want to go. If they make a little bit more there, they can spend a little bit less on the cap. It all balances out. But those are the benefits to Florida, to Tennessee, to Vegas. Is Texas one of them? I don't know. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Texas is one of them as well. Those are the benefits, right? I wasn't surprised Guentzel went. I was surprised I was honestly surprised that the Lightning just were so quick to move on from Steven Stamkos. Maybe not so quick, but that the Lightning were willing to. Here, put it this way: they went out and they traded for Ryan McDonagh, and I thought to myself, okay, they're going to try and run it back as it was a couple of years ago. McDonough's still got a few miles left on him. He's got a lot of miles on him, but he's got a few miles left on him. Let's get Hedman signed to a 4-year deal. Let's get Stamkos signed to a 3-year deal, and let's see if we can ride this thing out, right? I thought that's what they were going to do with Mikhail Sergachev. Okay, then they acquire McDonough and they trade Sergachev. They let Stamkos go and they sign Guentzel. So the question I have for this season coming up, and I asked this on Twitter, and I don't know the answer, but I'll take a stab at it, is are they better with McDonough and Guentzel than they would be with Sergachev and Stamkos? With due respect to Ryan McDonough and Jake Guentzel, my answer right now on paper is no. They're not better. But that's the decision that's the way they went with it. They didn't want to pay Stamkos what he got from the Nashville Predators, and I think he would have taken less to play, in Tampa. I think he might have taken a year less at the same AAV, but they didn't want to go that route. So Nashville benefits, I think, and now the Lightning have to change a lot of things because of the way Stamkos led that team and where he played and where he played on the power play. There's a lot of differences that are coming there.
Does Boston take a step back now that they lost Ullmark and having that goalie tandem, or can Swayman really carry them?
I think Swayman's an elite goalie in the NHL. I think he's a 55 start guy who is a Vezina type of goalie. I think he's that good. And I think they're way better because they got Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. Like they had smoke and mirrors down the middle last year. And now they got a guy who's, Patrice Bergeron light, if you will, like not compare. Nobody's Bergeron. There may never be a player like Bergeron again. He was that good. But Elias Lindholm plays that style, and they missed that, and he fits the culture, and he fits exactly the style of play. And Zadorov, to me, is just a perfect addition on big, mobile. He moves a puck well on a back end, and he plays also a type of Bruin style. So I think they're better, to be honest with you. I don't think losing Ullmark, unless Swayman gets hurt, I don't think losing Ullmark is that big of a deal, because they were able to have a guy like Jeremy Swayman. And not a lot of teams have two number ones who are Vezina Trophy candidates, right?
Right, definitely not. If we could put up that last comment, because it's funny. It's a funny comment. We're talking about the Islanders, and someone wrote in, people sleep on the Islanders because the Islanders put people to sleep the way they play the game, which is true. I mean, it's not, Nikolai's not wrong. Last few questions for you. Back to the Rangers prospects. Do you think, is Gabe Perreault viewed in house as their number one chip? Do you think?
I think so at this point. They really like EJ Emery, who they just drafted, but he's not ready. He's not close. Perreault's going to be back at Boston College, I believe, this season, and he could definitely be a guy I think we see in April. Depending on the season he has, it's a possibility that he's a guy that they sign straight out of college whenever he's done, his college season is done. They really like him, and they liked him when they drafted him, and they really, really like him even more now. He's a big part of it. Brennan Othmann is still, to me, the most ready top prospect. And I think he is an NHL player this year, Brennan Othmann. That's another reason why I think they trade Kakko, by the way. I think he's there. But Perreault is a guy they really, really like him. And I know they really, really like EJ Emery, who comes in he compared himself to Keandre Miller. And I'll be honest with you, if you can get another Keandre Miller in your lineup in 3 years, 2 to 3 years, that's going to really be. I mean, that's big for the Rangers, because I think Keandre Miller is on the precipice of taking that next step and being an elite defenseman.
Speaking of defensemen, is Zach Jones a everyday NHL player next season?
Throwing my hands up. I got no idea. I mean, I honestly have no idea. I don't know. We haven't seen it. I don't know that he can handle the rigors of it. But I don't know that he's any worse off than Eric Gustafsson, right? So if your third pair is Zach Jones and Jacob Trouba on opening night, I think you're okay with that, right? I mean, I think you're okay with that. You've got a puck mover on the left side, mobile. You hope he can jump into the play, and you got a guy who needs to stay back a little bit more, because when he jumps up, he gets beat, right? With the way that they play. So he needs to stay back and let the other guy go. And If that's your third pair, I think you're okay with that. Do you love it? You can't say you love it because one guy you've been trying to trade and the other guy you've never seen play the full 82 games.
Yeah. You got what were you gonna say, Doug?
So I got one for you, Dan.
Okay.
You had just been appointed as general manager. What are you doing? Top 3 moves you're making for the Rangers.
Number 1, stepping down. I'm stepping down from the role. Oh my goodness. Top 3 moves. I'm signing Shesterkin. I'm getting that done. Right.
Mhm.
That, to me, that's got to be a priority. Get it done. Iron that future out. Just, that's it. Number 2, I'm trying to get the best possible deal I can get for Kappo Kakko. Like I said, I just don't think it fits. I think he needs a change of scenery. I think the Rangers need a change of scenery from him. I'm going to try to get the best possible deal I can get, move on, and bring in Hoffman and whatever it might be after that. So that's 2. And number 3, I mean, it's easier said than done, but I want to trade for a top line right wing. I want a guy who can play that role. If I'm the I don't know. Or the other consideration here is to break up Zibanejad and Kreider, but that's a coaching decision. That's not me as a general manager's decision, because maybe it's time that those two are broken up. We'll see. They didn't dominate last year, right? They were good. They didn't dominate. But I'm scouring around trying to find a move that gets me that guy who can distribute the puck to those 2 players, skate with them, distribute the puck to them. And it does not have to be a superstar. To me, like I mentioned Matt Zuccarello before, Frank Petrano was great in that spot, right?
Yeah.
He was great in that spot. He's not a superstar. He's also not a huge distributor. He's more of a shooter, which is interesting, in that sense. But I think his ability to shoot and Zibanejad's ability to go to the net and Kreider's ability also creates the distribution a little bit too, if you know what I mean. Like a shot leads to chaos, and those guys are good at going to the net.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you, as always. It's Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Hopefully there'll be some Ranger moves for you to report on, and I'm sure we'll talk to you before the season starts. Thanks as always, Dan.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
That is Dan Rosen, a senior reporter, senior writer, NHL.com, always with the best insight. Let you and knew all the answers. So, a lot of good stuff there. I've been saying I would agree with Dan on the Kakko getting traded. It certainly seems like that's going to be something that Chris Drury is going to look to do. Whether he can use that as a chip to get a top line right wing or someone to play on that right wing with Zibanejad and Kreider will probably take being creative, but we shall see. Good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So do you miss hockey?
Yeah. I'm getting sports deprived in general.
Yeah, it's a unless you're into baseball, as we talked about before, it is a difficult time of year.
Unfortunately, that's not my favorite sport. But we did just come off of the Euros and the Copa Americana, which are basically like a preview of the World Cup if you don't know soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little interesting to watch that. But yeah, I'm a little sport deprived.
So we were on last Wednesday, and I wore an England jersey because they were playing the Netherlands that day.
Yeah.
Not that I am a huge soccer fan, but I follow it a little bit, and I do. I'm part British. You wouldn't know because I don't have the accent, but like minor part, right? Yeah. So I root for them. So my son was home last week, sick all week, and we watched the game together, and the goal in the 90th extra time minute was awesome. And then the other day, I had said to him, and I said, look, England never wins anything big. Like, they always find a way. Mm-hmm. And so they went down 1-0, and he was annoyed. And then they came back and tied the game, and he got in. And I'm like, this is all we need. Like, it just ropes him back in. Mm-hmm. And then, bam, 78th minute, Spain wins it. So should have seen that coming. But so, with the Rangers, look, you'll see what Trouba does here going forward. I think the more time goes on here, the more likely it is that Jacob Trouba is back on the team. And fans are going to have to be, if you were someone who wanted to get off the Trouba train, you're going to have to find a way to get back on it because he's going to be your captain this season.
So if I'm the Rangers, and this kind of goes full circle to what we talked about at the beginning of the show with like the hard knocks aspect. If I'm the Rangers, I'm maybe doing a behind the scenes docu-series kind of thing, and I'm featuring Trouba and his life and his family, trying to get people to support him and his, you know what I mean?
Get back engaged.
do a little branding for him, because you're right. If things go the way they're going now, opening night, he's getting booed.
Or he's getting Troubed. You're right. I mean, Trouba. Yeah, that'll be interesting. That is it for us today. We thank Dan Rosen for senior writer NHL.com for joining us. Always perfect insight, best of the best. We are in the dog days of summer, so we will figure out here. I don't know that we're on next week. We might be, but if we're not on next week, we'll be on the following week. We won't disappear for that long, for sure. We'll try to keep up to date with what's going on, although there's not a lot going on with hockey. And then we will start looking at football. So as well as we get forward. Thank you to the Bamboozle Project as always. Hold on, you're pointing at me.
Yeah. Wait.
What's up?
We have a little debate on Instagram. So in the studio,
band. Okay, yes.
In the studio, before we go live, we sometimes have little debates. Today is Matchbox 20 with Rob Thomas better than just Rob Thomas himself? So go to the Instagram account and cast your vote.
You can vote in the story. You can be
part of our little in-studio debates.
Yes, we will start featuring those, because sometimes, like today, I think was a fair question. Yeah. Sometimes they can not be like one-sided. Today was a good question. Yeah. We thank the Bamboozle Project as always. Check them out, thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. And again, some of the stuff that is out of stock on the site will be coming back on soon, so keep checking daily for that. We thank DraftKings as well for their sponsorship, and we will talk to you soon. Enjoy your summer day.